We start. Okay, cool.
Okay, I think we've started. So, welcome. I can't see all of you. So, hello, all of you who are out there. Super excited to have you on board for our discussion today. So, yeah, just give us a hi in the chat to say where you're from and just give us a hello and let you know that you're there. But let's get started into the discussion today. So, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to discuss today how to thrive outside the lines. Before we get started, I think it's really important that we spend a little bit of time just introducing ourselves. So, first of all, I'm Bronwen, and I'm a lead product designer at Xero in Melbourne, Australia. So, for some of you that I've seen that are in Oz, hi from Oz too. I've been working in the design field for about 10 years or so. And my latter half, I've been focused on specializing in and advocating for accessibility and inclusive design. And it was a conversation with Leandro around, I'm going to say inclusion, but probably more exclusion, that actually led us here today to have this discussion. I'm going to hand over to Leandro to introduce himself.
All right. Well, hello everybody. Bron and I, we met working at Xero, which is this company that's based in New Zealand. They do accounting software for small businesses. That's how we met. We were both foreigners in a way, foreigners to accounting, foreigners to different countries. Bron, you hear she is from England, living in Australia. I'm from Argentina, living in the US. Now, we never shared a project while we were working together, so this is our chance to reunite and do something for all of you. I'm currently working at Google as an interaction designer for artificial intelligence and machine learning, and I'll be happy to keep talking about that, but just let's start with our chat.
Awesome.
Okay, let's start with this. So, do you feel that being yourself make you feel out of place or weird? This is what we are going to be talking. This is what Thrive Outside the Lines is going to be about. How we are surrounded by systems that enforce a way of being and behaving, how we are taught to learn the rules and stay inside the lines, how sometimes we are told, especially when we come from different cultures and different backgrounds, what is weird, what is not. But then there's us, right? Everyone here in this talk, with our identities, all of our experiences, and how those things combine to make you yourself and no one else is what we're here to talk about. So don't fear, because we have stories, tips, and resources to help you tap in your inner strengths. So with that being said, we're going to make a question for all of you in the chat, so you can try to answer, like, very briefly, what do you feel that makes you weird? What are the things that makes you unique, makes you different from the rest of the people? And we're going to read you in the chat for a little bit.
Tell us in the chat. It might be something that someone has told you that you're weird. It might be something that you feel in yourself that makes you a bit weird. So, yeah. Awesome. The way I think, being yourself. It rings a bell. It's so true. Look for art and everything. It's awesome. Keep them coming. By the way, Leandro and I are not getting out of this. We are also going to share some of our stories throughout the session with regards to what's made us weird in our life.
So we're going to present a couple of steps and tips for all of you. Bron, if you want to take it away.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, those for you who have also shared. That's awesome. So, when you're thinking about thriving outside the lines, you have to kind of start with, unfortunately, probably thriving inside the lines. So, what do I mean by that? Well, what do I mean? I mean, learn the rules. When you find yourself in a new environment, whether that be at work, like a new job, or maybe even a new team, it's useful to learn the rules. Sometimes rules can be helpful to you. They can pass on accumulated knowledge. They can help keep us safe, especially maybe when we're in a new country or a new place altogether. And they can enable us to form communities. On the flip side, rules can sometimes be harmful. They can perpetuate biases or even stifle new ideas and creativity. But in order for you to understand the difference, you need to learn what the rules are and why they exist. So, some top tips. Leandro.
Okay, so the first thing, every time we come in a new team, and again, every time we talk about thriving outside the lines, we're talking, okay, you are the new designer in a team, you are the new engineer in a new company, you are a new person in a whole world that is different and strange from everything you've seen before. So the first thing is understanding how are we going to balance our bias. What that means is like, what are our lenses? What are the things that we bring with us? What are the things we inherited, such as race, gender, nationality, things we developed, such as political views or religious perspectives, or even behavioral things, like how do we approach to problems? Who do we get advice from? Where do we find the news? So understand that everyone has these lenses, but not everyone is aware that they do or even what they are. So understanding that. The second one would be considering the opposite. What we call considering the opposite is asking this question to yourself: what would the world look if my assumptions were wrong? And what I'm going with this is that our minds sometimes play on us, because that sometimes we highlight some information that already confirms what we believe, or we sometimes ignore information that disproves it. So the third tip would be like, okay, how do we embrace a growth mindset? And the question here to ask ourselves is, do I need to slow down? Because the sign moves fast and we have to hustle to keep up. But often when we move fast, we rely more heavily on biases. So how can we be more like, okay, wait, being attentive, being more into listening, and to just getting to get a grasp on what's going on around us to learn the rules.
Awesome.
Bron?
So, this is kind of the best bit, right? Once you've learned the rules, you get to break the rules. And obviously, I am biased in saying this is the best bit. But I'm going to caveat this with a little something. I'm going to say sometimes it's okay to break the rules. Some rules are rigid and they can't be changed, but most of them are open to interpretation. And once you've learned the rules, you're actually able to determine those that limit you and those that enable you. Sometimes actually breaking the rules is the only way to explore new ideas and, most importantly, bring about change. So make sure that you're going to break them with purpose. I'm going to talk through a little bit of a story with regards to a rule that I've broken many times in my life, and I like to say that I feel like I continue to break. So I'm a confident, driven woman. I hope that's coming across today. I'm well-spoken, and I'm someone who likes to share my opinion when I do believe I have something of value to add. Now, probably for many women out there, they know that this breaks many stereotypes and rules about women and who a woman should be and how they should behave. But for me, this is not about playing inside the lines. My goal is to stride so far out of them. I know my worth and I know my value, and so it's really important for me here to remain true to myself. And this benefits me to do so, but the most important thing is it also benefits the women coming after me and the women standing by my side now. So I want to just say that this is a rule that I am proud to break, and I want to break because it hopefully will bring about change. Now, breaking rules can be uncomfortable, but it's really important, and as designers, you all know this, that it's really important that we get comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you can embrace the awkwardness and the unknown of striding outside the lines, you can be sure in yourself that you are upholding your own values, and this is going to be a superpower. So like Leandro just did, I'm going to give you a few top tips when you think about breaking the rules, okay? So first of all, before going ahead and breaking any rules, it's really important that you actually consider the outcome. What is the consequence of you breaking the rules, and is it worth it? Be sure to understand the difference between rules and values. So this goes again to learning, right? You need to learn someone's values. You need to learn your values before you go ahead and start trying to change the game, trying to change the rules. And last of all, I think this is probably one of the most important ones for me, is as you break the rules, it shouldn't be about personal benefit. There may be an element of personal benefit in it, but it ultimately should be for the collective good. Number 3, over to you, Leandro.
Okay, so here comes. I mean, this is not a rule of thumb. You can just follow this in any point and in any way you want. But we learn the rules, we break the rules. So what's next? And what's important about, again, the role that we do and the responsibility that we have is to come curious, is to understand that meaning is not contained in one place, is to understand that people who is in design is someone that needs to be constantly curious. And I'm going to tell you a story that I learned back in the day from one of my mentors. And the question was this: like, did you ever stop to pay attention to your breath? If you did headspace or anything, or you just meditated, right? So when you're meditating and you're in a guided meditation, they ask you to count your inhales and your exhales. And of course, what do we inhale? Air, oxygen, yes. But when you're in the world of design and product, what else are you inhaling? And I tried to do this while inhaling, but this is not going to work. So I'm going to just imagine that you're inhaling, and what you're inhaling is the 3 things you need to do to be a good designer: reading doom scrolling design Twitter, the thread with the 250 tools that will change your life, LinkedIn inspirational posts, designers complaining, designers bragging, the 5 Figma plugins that you need to be the best designer in the world, portfolio best practices. So you're just inhaling all that stuff, and then so much of you there's there that all of a sudden you feel you're out of breath. So now what? Like, what's next after getting all that stuff? Well, we have to exhale. And what do we exhale when we exhale? Well, everything we absorbed, but mixed with our personal stories, our past experience, the places we visited, the people we met. So in that exhalation, here comes you, right? You made a collage in your mind with all the stuff that you acquired. You picked what was useful, you discarded what wasn't good for you. And all of a sudden, when you're in that exhalation, you don't sound at all like anyone else. You sound like you. But it doesn't stop there, right? Because you have to repeat the cycle. Inhale again, exhale again. So it's critical to make time to both inhale what others tells us and mindfully exhale our own creative impressions of those stories for a what I would call the full breadth of experience. Because that uniqueness that you bring will open new doors. It will help others see things from a different perspective. And those others, they might even start asking new questions to themselves. So, as a designer, you're planting the seed of curiosity, which brings us to the next question, which is what does it mean to be curious to you? And you can type it on the chat. We're going to read some. Excitement.
It's a tricky question, Leandro.
It's tricky. This one's a tricky one. But I can tell you, oh, okay, they all came all of a sudden.
Going now,
It's
yeah.
interesting.
Always
Nice.
asking why. Yes.
Wanting to find more, try new things. So one of the tips that we're going to tell you about coming curious, or the three things, if not, would be save everything. Like be a sponge, acquire everything, use Notion, Evernote, Google Keep, a notepad, pen and paper. And also don't feel that you have to have the answers. Just be a note taker. Be someone who can just sit there and take notes, visual facilitation, do drawings, do diagrams. Be the person that no one, we're all rushing to coming to conclusions. Just you be the one who's observing, right? Be a little bit of a journalist, become a journalist, and always ask for feedback. The most important thing about curiosity is getting out of your head and partner up with other people that can give you some good constructive feedback. Which takes us to the next point.
Yeah, sorry, I'm so absorbed by all of these answers. They're amazing. Maybe, Leandro, you've heard this enough times, so maybe you can carry on reading those answers while I move on to the next one. And Leandro did start to allude to this one, right? Your uniqueness. So what am I saying with number 4? Well, here we suggest and think about the idea of embracing weird, right? I just asked you, and Leandro asked you at the beginning, what makes you weird? And this is where we're going to start to dive into that. I'm going to start off as well by saying here that being called weird, being called abnormal, unusual, right? Sometimes it can feel a little not nice, but this is probably the best compliment anyone could give you. Your unusualness is the fabric woven from the thread of your life. And what do I mean by this? I mean your identity, your environment, all the experiences that you've had combined together make you who you are. And your weirdness, well, that's a hint to what you've seen and to what you're going to see and become. It's a hint at the hidden powers that you possess, and that by being weird is actually your potential. So I'm going to share a little story again. And I told you I wasn't going to get away with not sharing what makes me a little bit weird. And I saw some of the comments and I definitely resonated with some of those. So I've pretty much felt like an outsider most of my life for a number of different reasons. As Leandro talked about, I've moved from the UK to Australia. I've said many strange things in an Australian environment that I probably shouldn't have said. My humor certainly doesn't land here at all. I made a terrible joke yesterday at work and I continue to sweat and think about it. But also when I go way back, when I was at school, I was an outsider. I was often bullied for things about my personality. And one of the reasons that I actually was bullied and called a bit weird was the fact that I loved learning. And I still love learning, and I was an absolute nerd about it. Now, the reason I love learning doesn't come from a particularly happy place, okay? I was a child of an alcoholic father. And so learning for me was a really safe space. It was something that I could control and somewhere that I could thrive in. I liked to hide in my schoolwork. And as a result, like I said, I was often bullied for being a nerd and classed as weird. Now, I've embraced that. And I think unconsciously, I've never chosen to deviate from weird. I kind of accepted that this is who I was. Um, but these experiences have made me who I am today. And I think one of the most important things is now I'm celebrated for my love of learning. As a designer, the love of learning has helped me become a better designer, has helped me become a better leader. I'm more empathetic. I understand a little more about what's happening in the world. So while my experiences have not always been happy and joyful, they have got me here today and have enabled me to thrive. So, a couple of top tips from being weird or embracing weird. So, first of all, find your character strengths. Find what makes you strong. What is it in your experiences that have made you grow? Lean into them. You might have to spend a little bit of time with self reflection. You might have to spend a little bit of time speaking to others to find out. If you don't know and you're unsure, there's something called the Gallup Strengths Finder. So it might be worth starting there. The most important thing is embrace your weirdness. Use it to your advantage and use it to surprise people to show them what you're capable of. And lastly, for this one, talk to others. While your uniqueness is your uniqueness, everyone has a little bit of weirdness in them. So you are not alone, and speaking to others can really help that. I'm going to hand over to Leandro for the last one.
Okay, so we're in the last point of the 5 we did, which I think we decided to use this one with Braun. In I was struggling with what is the image that we want to use to represent that we are many. And I think that the matchsticks, there's something about, how each one of us, we can light a little fire, but when we're together, we can just make a bonfire, right? Make a massive, massive fire together. And understanding that in that weirdness, sometimes, there's always a way in which you can relate to other people. And by that means that sometimes it takes time, it takes curiosity, it takes observation. um, I'm going to say that in companies like the ones that Braun and I landed, where you have to learn very specific topics such as accounting, sometimes we wish, we could land there and be rock stars in like 24 hours, but it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes a lot of building relationships. It's all about human connection. And look, I don't work with her anymore, and we're still in touch and we're still doing things like that. And my point with this is that sometimes it's not as important as the work you do, but more of the impression that you leave where you work. Like, how is people going to remember you? Were you someone who are social, who are like bringing people together, empowering others, right? So when it comes to this idea of we are many, what we're going to present to you on terms of tips are things that probably, it's not going to blow your mind. It's going to be more of a refresher. The first thing is, and we are an ADPList sponsored event, but find a mentor. I always like to think that the term mentor is a little bit skewed, because there's this idea of like someone that is going to bring knowledge to you. But in reality, find a mentor means like reach out to a colleague. And what also that means is that you're going to share your experiences and you're going to learn from the other person's experiences. So it's not so much of an interrogation or you're attending a master class of sorts. It's more than you're having a genuine human connection when there's convergence where you can commiserate. I mean, we always joke with Braun that commiseration is probably one of the best ways of bonding with someone. You know, it's like, okay, we are together in either like we dislike this or we really like that. And that is when we just do make those connections. The other thing is joining a local meetup. Probably this was, it sounds like weird these days, like post COVID, but before COVID, there were so many meetups. That's how I met a lot of people. And then those people, you know, you always come to full circle, and then you're gonna meet them again. And one day you're working for them, some other day they're gonna be your managers, then you're managing them. Life, it's so beautifully chaotic, so that is fantastic. And the third one is like, okay, let's suppose you're in a place where there's no meetups. Well, thank goodness, or hopefully you have internet and you can join the online communities, Slack, Discord channels, places where you can have a little bit of an active role. Sometimes I think you're like, oh yeah, I follow a lot of people on Twitter, but Twitter is more like, okay, I put a heart, I put a like, but there's no back and forth. I think in the communities you can have those conversations, that back and forth. I'm sure there's so many tips, and for that reason, there's gonna be some time here for us to, like, we're gonna open the mic and everyone can share their own experiences as well. But to recap, we talked today about these 5 points that Bron is gonna remind you.
Thank you, Leandro.
Well,
sorry, I was trying to unmute. I was reading comments. I was doing this. So it's awesome. And yes, we have been asked that whether or not we'll be sharing a link with the resources in. So I've just said yes, we will be after the end. So, but let's recap first. Number one, learn the rules. Learn why they exist and where they can be helpful or potentially where they hinder. Second of all, break the rules. But when you do, be sure to do it for purpose and for the collective good. Come curious. So, as Leandro said, breathe in, inhale, make sure you're absorbing all you can, exhale and put your own twist on what you've learned. Embrace weird. Surprise the world with your unusualness. Embrace your experiences and know that for them, they are your superpower. And lastly, we are many. Remember that you are not alone. There are people out there to share and talk about your experiences with, and together we can thrive outside the lines. Q&A/link to resources. So maybe we'll drop, Leandro, have you got the link to hand that maybe we can drop into the chat for everyone?
yeah, we should definitely do it, because everyone, I was reading that they were praising the design, the content, and such. So yeah, if you have access to that link, that I'm gonna put it in the chat for your convenience. Here you access this, and then you're gonna access this Google slide that you can just take a look at it and copy or anything, do anything you want with it.
Yeah, take it. Awesome. I'll start presenting at this point, and maybe we'll tackle your Q&A if there's some in.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So number one, how to break the rules and still design something innovative and usable, like iOS's dynamic island. Oh, mobile design question. Great one.
That's for you, Bron.
Is it? Is it? I would say that in that circumstance, whoever designed that, if that was iOS, they went ahead and did break the rules. They actually thought about, what are the rules that we've got? What are the restrictions that we've got? And as a result, what can we do that still sort of tackles the line of that? But how can we change that and use that for either, like we said, the collective good, or to enhance the designs that we have or the technology that we have? Sometimes rules, like we said before, are about understanding, how do I say this? understanding what can't be changed and what can be changed. So as you get given rules and you think about being innovative, ask yourself, what about these rules can be changed, and what about these rules can't be changed, can be changed and can't be changed. And as a result, where are your lines of innovation? I hope that helped. I don't know if Leandro, if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, that's fantastic. I was thinking we can just go because I see there's a whole bunch of questions, so
Awesome.
we can keep moving. And this one, I just love it because and thank you, Charmy, for this. I think for me, what's the biggest thing here in outside the portfolio is that there's always that feeling that, and again, when I was talking about inhaling, you read so much about the best practices and what needs to be done on a portfolio, and at a certain point in time, you are just listening to so many people that you just forget about you just forget about your own voice. So what I usually try to say on when I'm on ADPList and we talk about portfolios is like, this is your chance to show who you are to others. Meaning, if you want your portfolio to look like everyone else's portfolio, I feel that your voice, of course, it might get a little bit diluted. Everything can become a little bit cookie cutter, but I think at the same time, you're gonna feel like it's less of a thing that represents you. So this idea of like, how can you create something that talks, and again, probably doesn't need to talk necessarily about the products you did. I mean, I know that many people, we work on products that perhaps they didn't go well. They didn't go well as planned, and we always like to wrap everything, in making it look like everything we touch, we turn it into gold. But no, how can we use that portfolio to show vulnerability, to show what are the challenges that we got, and especially what are the things that we learned that we didn't know any before, that we learned there, and then we feel that we can just add it to our own toolbox, and then we can walk to with that toolbox to our next opportunity, our next job, our next project, and apply those learnings that we got from perhaps having to be in a very adverse sort of scenario. So I always say that work less on trying to sell the product and work more on trying to figure out how did you grow as a person and how that experience made you who you are today.
Such a good one. How would an entry-level designer challenge creative thinking with little to no experience? I can take this one if you want, Leandro. Awesome. I would say that you're actually probably one of the best people to challenge creativity and design experience or design, because when you are at an entry level, you actually don't know the rules just yet. A lot of us, I can speak for myself, once you've been in the industry, a couple of years, 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever it might be, you've started to conform to what the industry wants. You've started to learn where the rules are. You've started to be slightly tainted potentially. And so while, yes, maybe not coming in and telling the creative director how to do it, but come in and ask questions. So many of you said about it when we asked you, what does it mean to be curious? Come and be curious. Come and ask questions about questions. Ask why they have done it the way they have. What does this mean? You're learning, but also in asking questions, you're asking everyone else to think about why they've done the things that they've done and asking them to add rationale to it. Sometimes you might even challenge them to think about what they've done. And I'm going to say more than sometimes. So many times I've been in ADPList sessions and I'll be doing a mentor session and they'll ask me, how do I do it this way? Why did you do that? And I'll be like, oh crap, why did I do it this way? Why did I think about it like that? And it will ask me to reflect on my process. It will ask me to reflect on what I've said and done. And I can tell you, I have learned so much from the younger, more inexperienced members that I speak to of our community because they ask such interesting questions. I'll leave it there for that one. What have we got next? How to come with new design ideas and think out of the box. Oof. That's a tricky
This is
one.
a good one. This is a good one. And we can do like one-on-one, but I feel that this one, it could be probably Bron and I going to have different answers, and that would be fantastic. Again, we were working on a company, she's still working there, on a company that does accounting. And of course, I mean, we are designers. We didn't know anything about accounting. So we have to learn the rules. We have to learn how accounting works. It's kind of a steep learning curve. But then for me, what made something that really clicked on me was the moment that I stopped thinking, for example, we're doing this that is for accounting, but it could be for any industry, doesn't matter. So you are going to hear voices from customers. You're going to hear voices from people who have been in these companies and industries for too long. So again, speaking of the junior and senior, there's people who's like super biased, that for them there's like, this is the right way, this is the wrong, there's no grace in between. And I think that's something that like what clicked in me one time doing this accounting software was that, okay, what is the human emotion that we want to trigger? What is the behavior that we want to change? And then you all of a sudden, like, this whole technicalities disappear, and then you want to say, well, I want to make this person that is feeling this way to feel that other way. And that opens a world of opportunities, because then you don't care so much about the technicalities. You think of more of, I mean, we are humans, we're highly emotional, and we think like, we like to think we think with our heads, but we really think with our hearts. So how do you win the hearts of people? How can you communicate in a way that you put the feeling that you want to generate first and all the technicality second? And you would be amazed on how you're going to start thinking outside the box, because you're going to see that there's so many ways, many different pathways and avenues to improve people's well-being. My answers tend to be wishy-washy, but sorry about that.
That's the joy of it, though, Leandro. All right, okay. Here's a really quick one. Let's see if we can get this in. We've only got 2 minutes left, so we've got to wrap up. How can we influence others that don't fall under your same line to help them see your strategy while at the same time making them feel heard and validated? Oof, that's a tough one for a quick answer. But I think you used the key word there, which is influence. So there's nothing we can do when they're not within our lines, right? We're not there to tell them what to do. We've not got the authority. But the important word is influence. And when you think about influence, I think about bringing them on the journey, engaging them in the steps and the process. There's nothing more that people like than not feeling like they don't have control of a situation or they fully understand a situation. So maybe use your seniority and your experiences to bring people on that journey from the beginning, or if they're not from the beginning, then respectfully bring them in throughout and allow them to have a chance to have their say. Now, the word with influence, again, is it doesn't mean that they have to do exactly, you have to do what they say or do what they suggest, but respectfully understanding where they're coming from can be really helpful. I've really rushed through that answer. I'd love to unpack it a little bit more, but we do have only a minute left. So maybe.
And if you want to unpack it, Bron, also we share the slides. You know where to find us.
Yeah, exactly.
So we are happy to. You can find us on ADPList on social networks, and we're here. We're here to chat with you anytime. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful conversation. And hopefully you can chat with us again in the future. Do find us on ADP.
Yes. Yes.